it's something I'd never considered, but as time went on, I got put into a few positions early on in my career where I worked undercover, and I actually liked it. It's a situation where I think that it's a challenge to yourself, and it's a challenge when you go out and you're actually a good guy, a police officer, and you have to portray being a bad guy, and you have to sell yourself to the bad guys. And so that was a challenge in itself. And so what you do is you try to think of things to personify yourself or make yourself believable as that bad guy. And obviously you can do some things physically where, I would grow the rough beard and the long hair, and you would try to, obviously act tough or have an accent. And again, you have to get back to knowing people. And you have to know, it's on a moment's notice. You judge people, and you have people that are judging you constantly. And it's just, if it was a real life situation, and that's what you do, you tell yourself, if this was a real life situation, how would I act? And you have to act that way. And obviously, you're making a criminal case, and you have to stay within the parameters of your policy and following the law. So in other words, if I was going undercover as a drug dealer or wanting to purchase drugs, our policy, we could not do drugs. So you had to always think ahead of the bad guy. Think about the things that you wanted to do ahead of times, because you always knew you were going to get those questions that if you didn't have the right answer, your cover would be blown, and then the case would be blown. I'll tell you a story. My wife's father was a doctor, and I had told him that one time when I was doing some of the middle range narcotics deals, how could I get away with when these people wanted me to test or use the narcotics? And I would tell them he had actually provided me with an ointment and a cream that and basically it said, hey, look, I've been doing too much blow, and I've been doing way too much, and I've got this hole in my nose, and in fact I got this medicine here. And I would actually show him this tube of medicine saying, I have to put this up my nose just because I've been doing so much blow. They told me I'm going to have a heart attack if I don't stop. I was on a park bench in Chicago, and I had and we were going to arrest the guy. It was going to be a buy bust, and I think it was for a few ounces of cocaine. And I had several surveillance cars that were circling this park. And the guy sat down on the park bench with me, and he looked at me and he said, you know what, I know you're a cop. And I said, why would you say that? And he said, because I see all these surveillance cars. And he actually sat there and named every surveillance car we had. And I continued to play like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I knew at that point he would convinced himself that I was a cop, and I knew the deal was going to be shut off. And actually, maybe I thought, wow, did I give it away myself with some facial expressions, because this guy had actually named every surveillance car we had. And then I thought to myself, but why is this guy here? And I pulled out a big wad of money that was this thick, and I showed him to him, and I said, well, then I guess you don't want this. And he says, no, you know what, I think you're a cop, and I'm not going to do the deal. And he walked away, and he got about 20 feet from me, and he turned around, and he came back and sat on the bench, and he goes, you know what, I know you're a cop, but I have to have that money. And it was greed. He was there because of the greed. And he actually, handed me the drugs, and of course I hit the panic button, and all those cars moved in and arrested him. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, I knew you were a cop. And I'm just like, well, why did you do the deal then? But it's so you have to know the nature of the people and why they're doing what they're doing for those reasons. I remember a situation in that where my partner was gone with some people that had come in. I think they wanted to buy a stolen car or some burglary proceeds, and I was left into the room, and sometimes you have to get very innovative, and you have to think on your feet. And this was July. It was 98 degrees out. It was in Waukegan, Illinois. It was very hot, and 3 men came in, but they were wearing coats. It's July. It was just way too hot for this. And I'll never forget, one stood by the door, and one went over to the counter on the right, because this was an actual fake store we had with all this resale shop. And then the other person came to the counter, and he began questioning. He said, "Where's your partner?" And I just knew something was wrong. Obviously, three men walk in and they're wearing coats and they got their hands in their pockets, and they were very nervous. Probably part of the reason they were nervous is they felt in their minds we were mafia, so they were a little bit hesitant on how to act with us. I had no gun. I had nothing. I knew that I couldn't blow the cover by saying, "Hey, I'm a police officer," and because I'm in fear of my life. And the one person came up to the counter and he immediately asked where my partner was. And I knew that was probably the one thing that was troubling them, and they wanted to know if my partner had a gun and he was in the back, and if he heard them do something to me, would he come out? So at that point I told him, I said, "I don't know if Harry Wellbank was my partner at the time." I said, "I don't know if he's in the back or if he's gone." I said, "Why? If you want to do business with me." And as time went on and the guy got more nervous and just kept wanting to know about my partner, I actually started thinking on my feet. I go, what can I do here? I'm kind of helpless if these guys are here to rob me. So what I did was I opened the drawer, and in the drawer I had a stapler, and I started kind of banging the stapler against the drawer. I had my hand actually inside this desk drawer. I stayed seated at the desk, and I put my hand in the drawer and I started banging this, hoping they would think it was a gun. Finally, I got mad and started, using some profane language, and I told them, I said, basically, if you want to deal with, my partner's not here, if you want to deal, let's deal with me, or otherwise get out. And they kind of looked at each other, and they turned around and they left. And I was like, wow, what was that all about? And about 20 minutes later, a guy that I'd actually been dealing cocaine with, that thought I was his best buddy, come running in, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I gotta tell you, man, word on the street is there's this Hispanic guy and two black guys that they think that you guys got a lot of money in the back, and they're coming to hit you guys." And I'm like, oh my God. I didn't tell him this, but I said, those guys were just in here. And I was able to play the game with nothing. But they, in their minds, were trying to decide whether to kill me or not. And the one thing was that I was able to keep playing with them, and they were worried about if my partner was there or not, and what should they do if there would be repercussions. So again, that's where you are called upon in situations to think quickly on your feet and just use whatever you have to play the game.